Hey guys, if you're watching this video, you're probably a busy founder looking to meet with investors, likely because you're raising some capital. So in this video, I want to do a follow along version and a high level overview of what it would look like if you set up your own outbound system trying to meet investors. This is tested. We have done this internally at BFOUND multiple times, and we have helped multiple clients with this as well. Internally, we of course have our own warm network of investors as well, which we primarily lean on. But in some cases, we do end up using this for some of our clients as well. So moving on, this video is not trying to convince you whether or not cold outbound works in meeting investors. If you don't think that if you put yourself in front of 100 investors that you'd be able to book one meeting, this video is probably not for you, and I'm not going to convince you otherwise. But this system is for you if you're perhaps outside of a major investor hub, perhaps Silicon Valley. If you're not there, it might be hard to find investors in your region. Maybe you have a limited investor network, or you've already kind of tapped into your network and they don't quite make a fit, or otherwise you just need a pipeline of investors because you can't just pitch the 10 investors that you know, and you probably need a bit more, especially if you're starting to raise 10 mil and above as well, and you are starting to look for those institutional VCs. I'll briefly mention as well that this guide will not go into the nuances of copywriting or email infrastructure as well. I tend to find that many of the guides outside are typically focused on outbound and get a little bit too in the nitty gritty of things. And it's not so important, especially if you're only doing this for a short period as well, or it's not exactly investor specific. So if you want a video like that, please leave a comment, like and subscribe, and let me know what you're looking for. And then if you want, I'll create a more nuanced copywriting video on what those emails and reach outs are supposed to look like. Jumping into things, if you don't know who we are, I'm Brennan. I run BFOUND, and basically what we do is help busy tech founders meet the right investors so that they can raise capital faster than they could if they did it themselves. My team kind of runs through the entire gamut of getting you investor ready. So whether it's working on the pitch deck, the financial model, or looking at your valuation and term sheets, we kind of do and guide you through the entire race. But unfortunately, we can only take on a few deals at a time, which is why I'm creating this video. A part of our mission here at BFOUND is trying to modernize fundraising and breaking down some of these gate-kept walls. So the next best thing, instead of working with us, is actually setting up some of these guides to show you how you could do some of this yourself. And maybe down the line for further raise or on the race that you're currently on, you'd be willing to work with us as well. We'd love to help. Okay, so what does this total setup look like? All in, it can be quite cheap as well, and it can go, of course, a bit more or a little bit cheaper depending how lean you want to run the setup as well. But generally, you'll be looking at about 250 USD all in, and there's going to be a monthly cost on some of these subscriptions as well. But primarily, if you've done fundraising before, you know how tedious it can be, and it's really just about the time efficiency as well. So if you're only spending about 250, it's for the subscriptions, it's probably about $140 a month. That's a huge steal for the amount of time savings you're going to get with this system as well. And what does this system look like? Let's quickly run into my presentation here. Generally speaking, I'll break down what a fundraise looks like. If you're looking at warm activities only, you're really going to have to rely on friends and family, so warm referrals. And that's where, advisors such as myself come in, where we kind of introduce you to the network that we're already engaged with as well. Or otherwise, there's in-person networking events, maybe some pitch events as well, where you could potentially meet investors. Those can be a little bit hit and miss because you might be an AI hardware focused startup, but there's not any sort of hardware investors at that specific event as well. So you kind of have to take your pick on which events you go to. And of course, by branding, I kind of mean this as the way you position in the market as well. Are you making a big splash on LinkedIn, social media? How are people recognizing you, and are investors actively chasing you because they have seen you online or in person as well? So all those are basically kind of warm activities, which are of course the bread and butter for most of these fundraising activities. However, at some point, as we mentioned, you will have to look at some cold traffic as well, potentially, if you're kind of a little stuck on that fundraise and might need to kind of fulfill the last few checks as well. Primarily speaking, for cold outbound, we really are only going to be looking at email and LinkedIn. You don't really want to be cold texting or cold calling investors as well. Trust me, we have actually tested this and it didn't quite work out very well. So primarily you want to focus on email and LinkedIn, and a lot of this, it works quite well together as well, which is why you'll see the arrow and how I explain it further down the line. But so pros and cons to both. If you do email, it's highly scalable. You could technically send out thousands of emails per day if you wanted to, and you set up the right system. For a fundraise, probably not recommended, which is why I can actually keep things quite cheap as well. And of course, there's no need to wait for someone to accept your email. You can just send them an email and it's up to them whether they open it, right? And for LinkedIn, there's a higher trust factor because they get to see your page and can look it through your profile. So therefore it's more personal, right? But you are really only limited to about 30 to 40 connections per week. And generally speaking, you're not going to be sending them a message unless they send a connection. Actually, this should actually probably be 30 to 40 connections per day. I will correct that, right? And my system here kind of goes through this principle in marketing where it's called, the rule of seven, meaning that someone has to look and see your brand 7 times before they're even going to be making a purchase decision or even meeting you, right? So the entire perspective of this is if you're doing everything right, the investors should kind of see you everywhere and as much as possible so that they build some sort of familiarity with you, right? So if you kind of want to break it down as to why that works, you are all the way here and your funding is all the way on this other side of the spectrum. And that's basically trust. An investor is not going to invest in you if they do not trust that what you're doing is legitimate, right? So all the actions and visibility that you can take along that process bring you one step closer to getting those term sheets and funding as well. So before you start any of this system, there's no point starting unless you have a pitch deck. And when I say pitch deck, I probably mean a teaser pitch deck where it's a little bit shorter, probably 7 to 10 slides as well. If you have a bloated 50 slide pitch deck, that's just not going to float it. Most investors are going to turn off and you're just doing yourself a disservice. But of course, it's best as well to have a calendar link as well. You can go without this, but you're just going to save so much time and back and forth when you don't have to kind of negotiate time zones and availabilities as well. We use Calendly here, but of course, if you're on Outlook or Google, there's probably a free alternative that you have as well. Calendly is actually free for just personal links as well, so you can definitely start with that. Also, a good time to mention that I'm going to be talking about a lot of the tools that we use here at BFOUND. Most of them have alternatives as well. I just want to make this as simple as possible. So just recommending you what we already use and what we've already tested as well. I will put all the links down below so that you won't have to go out searching as well. If I have any sort of discounts, I'll provide it. But if not, again, I'll provide some alternatives for you to have a look at as well. So here is what the setup looks like. And step one actually starts down here in the bottom left as well. You have to set up your cold email platform, right? And I did mention earlier, you can do email or LinkedIn. I recommend doing a combination of both. If you're trying to keep it very lean, pick your weapon of choice as well. I personally recommend cold email just because it's more scalable and it's going to be a little bit faster. But LinkedIn, as mentioned, is a little bit more personal. So if your LinkedIn is completely stellar and optimized, maybe you want to lean towards that as well. So let's look at step one here. I recommend using smartly.ai, right? There's alternatives as well. I know some people use Instantly, which is a very close competitor. Very, very similar tools as well. You can, of course, use Apollo. We just don't recommend setting this up on just Google as well because we're trying to automate this as much as possible. But whatever you pick, set up the email sending software. It's very, very simple. Pay a subscription, you'll be logged in. And what your cold email platform is actually consists of are these two things. You need inboxes and you need domains as well. And that brings us to step two, right? So what does it mean by inboxes? You cannot, well, it's not that you can't, you just probably shouldn't email from your personal domain as well. So you need to be setting up multiple secondary domains which connect to inboxes as well. Again, it's a high level overview, so I'm not going to be digging into the details as well. But what I recommend here is buying about 30 inboxes, and each inbox is going to need specific secondary domains as well. And I'll show you what that looks like, right? On my website, this is befoundnow.com. It brings you to my website. This is what we call a primary domain. You do not want to affect the reputation of your primary domain by doing any sort of email sending as well, because sometimes things happen, you're going to be marked by spam filters, and we're going to cause some issues on our primary domain. So how we get around that is setting up secondary domains, meaning let's say BFOUNDteam.com. That's a secondary domain I have, right? This secondary domain isn't connected to my primary domain, but if you search it up, it reroutes back to the primary domain as well. So any sort of impact to that specific domain as well. And I recommend pork bun. So if I just jump up back to here, in pork bun here, you can kind of see that we have lots of domains. And if you're perhaps, if you're stripe.com, right, you might want to change things up and say maybe you want to be stripeteam.com, right? Now circle on here right now, and as you can see, stripeteam.com, that's already registered, but it's going to give you some other suggestions as well, and then you can purchase them for quite cheap, $1 here, $8 here. Usually you're looking at about $11 for a .com or .co domain. Those have usually the best reputations, so try to stick with that. But you can use any sort of kind of naming system here, as long as it reroutes back to your primary domain, and keep it looking as similar as possible to just increase that trust factor as well. So whatever you do, this is what I recommend. But again, you can get your domains from any sort of domain provider. If you just do a quick Google search, that's where you go. Back to our profile here. For inboxes, what this really means is kind of who you're sending it from. I recommend both Zapmail and Premium Inboxes. We use multiple here at BFOUND, but I recommend these two as they're just the most intuitive and allow you to make some smaller purchases as well. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like. So on Premium Inboxes, their pricing is $3.50 per inbox per month, right? And there's no monthly commitment, so you can always just cancel as well if not needed. And we, as mentioned, recommend doing about 30 inboxes as well, meaning that if some of the domains don't work out well because maybe you had some issues with sending, you still have some backup domains there as well. Spreading your infrastructure along both is a good idea, but of course you just don't have to do that if you don't want to. I recommend those two because the support teams are really good and they're just going to be able to set everything up for you. And what I mean by that is once you've set up your Smart Lead account, you can just give them your login and purchase the inboxes, and they'll log in, set it up for you, and set up all the warm up and sending limits as well. So it's pretty hands off for the most part, which is why I recommend those. But if you want your inboxes from anywhere else, again, you can purchase it. All of them are generally the same as well. Perfect. So we've now finished step 2, and we now want to do the LinkedIn automation tool. The LinkedIn automation tool that we use here is called HeyReach. Again, there's multiple, but I really do think HeyReach does everything that you need it to do. And the reason why I mentioned HeyReach today as well is that it actually connects to Smart Lead via API, which is integral in the system that I'm about to show you as well. But again, before you do any sort of LinkedIn outreach, you want to optimize your LinkedIn profile. Make sure you have a clear headshot. It actually talks about your startup there. You put in any sort of relevant experience and where you graduated, if that's relevant as well, on your LinkedIn, just to make things look good. The banner maybe has your startup logo and mission as well. And of course, you want to follow the sending limits. I did mention it's about 30 to 40 connections per day. HeyReach does that automatically for you. I actually don't think it allows you to go past 40 on HeyReach, which is why it's good as well. But let me show you a little bit about what that looks like, because once you've set everything up, you'll be doing some outreach to the investors here. And it's very important that this system can only work if you use relevant investor lists, right? So if you're looking to book meetings with AI investors, but you use a list of investors that, B2C e-commerce investors, they're just not going to respond to you anyways, and the system is of course going to fall apart. So each part of this system is very important that you get right, and especially using the relevant list as well. So what this system looks like specifically for LinkedIn, and I've set this up briefly just here. Once you're in HeyReach, you can actually set up a few campaigns, put in the list of investors as well. And a campaign can really just look like this. And if I just start here, so once the campaign has started, if they have accepted, what we've done here is that it waits 1 day to send a message, and you can actually probably shorten this to, let me make it some hours. So let's do 3 hours here. I like to keep everything in a tight time span as well, because we're trying to raise as fast as possible here. We're of course not trying to annoy anyone here as well. But what you can see is that after 3 hours of accepting, they receive a message. And if they reply to you, of course, you chat to them on your LinkedIn as well. You can end the sequence there. But if they haven't, 1 day later, we like their post, we view their profile, and then we of course like their post again. If nothing, we actually send this over to Smartly via API as well, meaning that they can also get an email. The beauty of this system is that they can actually see and get notifications that one, you've messaged them, you've liked the post by them, you've viewed their profile, then they've gotten an email as well. That's already 4 touches alone, and all automatically as well. So if they're also seeing you at pitch events, any sort of friends and family are recommending you as well, they're going to see your name pop up quite a bit as well. And of course, ideally leads to a meeting. You can see this on the other end as well. If they didn't accept your connection request, right? You're still liking their post, you're viewing their profile, liking their post, and adding it to Smartly as well. So no matter what happens here, you get multiple opportunities to speak to the same investor as well, to ideally book in that meeting as well. It does look like a little bit of overkill to some, but if you've done any sort of sales motion and GTM strategy as well, you understand that multiple touches is completely necessary in a sales funnel. And that is what a fundraising strategy is. It's basically a sales funnel, but instead of selling a product, you're selling equity in your business, which is why you need to treat it as such. Jumping back in here, it's very simple that once you've set up both and you've done your outreach, you're really only doing reply management in order to book in meetings as well. So what this looks like, if they do not reply, you can follow up twice more. And this is really awesome to do in Smartly as well, because you can automatically set that up so that you don't even have to do the follow-up yourself. You can automatically make it so that if they don't reply, you can send 2 to 3 more follow-ups if you need it to, right? And if they're interested, you of course just send them a meeting link, tell them a little bit more about the business. Again, I want to stress that you are not trying to sell your startup over email. You're just trying to merely get the meeting done as well. So don't be pitching within email. You're just asking if they're curious enough to have some time with you so that you can discuss what an investment will look like. If they're not interested, of course, you want to move on as quickly as possible. There's no time here chasing dead ends here. And of course, a lot of investors are also just going to tell you not now. For example, we have a lot of clients who are about $1 million of revenue, and lots of investors will say, let's maybe speak again when you reach 2 million, 3 million, 1.5, any sort of metric there. It's always very important that you don't put these to waste as well. Having those emails and replies, you can actually just now save them and choose to update them on a monthly or quarterly basis as well. It's what we recommend some of our clients as well. And we have actually seen lots of investors come back down the line and invest in a later round, or when they actually hit some sort of keystone metric. We say, hey, you mentioned that you wanted us to hit this milestone. Can we have a meeting now? And we've actually had clients and investors get investment that way as well. I'll leave a checklist down here below for you. I hope that system makes sense. Let me know in the comments if you want to see anything in more detail. Good luck with pitching. Good luck with getting funding. Do let me know as well in the comments if you do get investment. See you guys. Okay, that about wraps it up. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. Hope that was useful.